Good day, everybody. My name is Dr. Shaukat Malik, and I am the Chief Technical Advisor for UNIDO, West Africa Competitiveness Project, Sierra Leone. Today, we are going to discuss about ISO 19011 2018 standard, that is Auditor's Training Course. And as we have discussed earlier, that I have converted this Auditor's Training Course into 3 modules. Last week we have discussed about the module 1 of this ISO 19011 2018 standard, and today we are going to discuss about this module 2 of this ISO 19011 2018 standard. In the module 1, we have discussed about what is RDT, what is auditor, what is the roles of RDT and responsibility of RDT and auditors, and the types of audit, what is internal audit, what is external audit, what type of qualifications are required to become an auditor, and so on. So today we are going to discuss the next step and about this ISO 19011 standard, that is the guideline for auditing management system, and today we are going to discuss about conducting an audit, how to conduct an audit. Okay. And when I am saying about conducting an audit, definitely it starts with the first flow. This is a process flow diagram from initiating the audit, then document review, then preparation for the on-site audit, then to conduct the on-site audit, and then while you are doing the on-site audit, then you have to collect the evidence, and those evidence should be compiled as an audit report, and then audit report should be presented into the closing meeting, and then the non-conformance, those have been identified into the audit report, how to get follow-up of those non-conformance and how to close it. So this is the entire process flow diagram as per 19011, starting from audit, initiating the audit up to the audit basically follow up and audit closure. Definitely in this initiating of the audit, we have to define about determination of the audit objective. What is the audit objective? Audit objective and the audit scope is basically, for example, if we are doing the ISO 9001 audit, then its scope is ISO 9001. And as I told you, scope is the boundaries. The criteria will be definitely ISO 9001, and the scope will be that particular sites of the company. Maybe the company have 10 different sites in 10 different locations, but they have decided to get certification of the 5 sites. Then scope means you have to include those 5 sites into your audit plan. Basically, in this scope and criteria, we have to define about this kind of detail about ISO 9000 audit, and the boundaries of this audit. Then you have to, in the initiating of the audit, then you have to develop the audit team. Normally, the certification manager, that is head of the certification body, he decide about the lead editor, and the lead editor then develop his team, and uh, that what type of auditors should be included in his team, and what kind of technical experts he required depending upon the information on the application the auditory company has provided. Initiating, please note that initiating of the audit would only start when you will get the application, official application from the auditory company. We will discuss this one by one, but this is basically the process flow diagram of the audit, how it will start and then how it will end. But before initiating the audit, the application is mandatory, and that is the official application. Normally, the certification bodies place it on their website, or if application is detailed application, then they keep it with them, and normally the auditing company contact to the certification body. Then certification body share that form to the auditing company, and the auditing company fill the application form and then send it to the certification body. And then after getting the certification, after getting that application, and the application always contain the two parts. One is the financial part and other is the basically mandatory documents with that application. If both have been entertained, then certification body will definitely start the initiation process of the audit, and then these steps would be followed further. Definitely, after getting the application, then the certification body would review the document sent by the auditee. The auditee document should be reviewed, and those documents normally the certification body request to be enclosed through the application form, and then our certification body basically, or the auditor basically, review the quality documentation that has been included, and in that application form all the mandatory documents those are required with respect to ISO 9001, those should be included. Then the auditor would review the scope. He will check any exclusion it is. He will check the status. He will check all the basically mandatory procedures of ISO 9001. He would expect about the internal audit report, the management review minutes of the company, and based on that, then basically uh, auditor uh, would basically uh, get the following output. The document those has been included with the application form. Those will serve as an input, and the review process of those quality documentation, those documentation that has been included with the application, they will be basically reviewed as a process. And what will be the output of that process? Output would be definitely with the auditor, with the lead auditor, and he will basically prepare the document review report. He will develop his own checklist, his own points, what kind of basically documents he would check when he will basically go for the on-site audit. But in the review report, document review report, if there are some major gaps, for example, there is a clause number 4, and the company has not shared the documents with respect to clause number 4 of ISO 9001, then the auditor would or the lead auditor would contact with that company. Either that company has missed to share it with the auditor, or maybe they do not have the documents related to any class, either class number 4 or 5 or 6, any class. Then it means this is entire. If the documents are not there for entire complete class, on-site audit would not be conducted, and still the auditor would request to this company to please focus on this area. These are the major gaps, and before going for the on-site audit, they would conduct this audit and would inform to the auditing company, and they will prepare it and will reshare it. The formation of the audit team, as I briefed you, that the head of the certification body, basically he decides about the lead auditor, and if more auditors would be required depending upon the scope, depending upon the size of this company, then the lead auditor decide about his team, and he will decide about the individuals those need to be included into his team. He would decide about the timetable. He would decide about the composition of the audit team, how many auditors he would require, how many technical experts, and in which field the technical experts are required, and which auditor would perform which task. Normally, the lead auditor divides the different classes with the different auditors, or sometimes he adopt, instead of dividing into the classes, he adopt divided into the departments of the company to the different auditors, depending upon the competency of the auditor. But anyhow, the lead auditor decide about his team. Then the next step is about pre-audit contact. Uh, the initial contact with the auditee may be formal or informal and should be made by the audit team leader, that is the auditor. The purpose is to establish the communication channels with the auditee. The purpose is to confirm the authority to conduct the audit, inform the auditee on the proposed timing and the audit team composition. Please note that the audit team composition, it is must that you have to basically share the name of the auditee as well as auditors with the auditing company, and if they require, you can share the CVs. And if auditee company does not want any auditor, he will he has, then auditee company has to convince that what is the reason why he does not need this auditor to be included in the auditee team. If auditee company has some reservation, and then certification manager and the management of the certification body uh, convinced that the reasons provided by the auditee companies are fine, then they can drop that auditor from the team. But definitely the lead auditor has to contact and has to share his team and his team names, his team data with the auditee company, the timetable, and the applicable site safety rules. He will discuss with the auditee company, maybe in case some of the oil and gas company or some kind of chemicals companies, they need special dress or they need special site preparation. Then the auditor will discuss, lead auditor will discuss with the auditing company, and then he has to prepare accordingly and to prepare his team accordingly. And then the actions to conduct the pre-audit would be taken. Definitely the official company name and address would be taken from the auditee. Why? Because if this audit and on-site audit and later on the NCs are removed and the audit is successful, then the certification body has to issue the basically certificate, ISO 9000 certificate to this company, and the official name with the correct spelling and the address need to be provided on it. Scope of the audit would be provided on the certificate, and uh, definitely these two things are mandatory, that lead editor would get confirmed from the auditee company before going for the on-site audit. But definitely the auditor would collect the up-to-date organization chart before going for on-site audit. He would collect some of the important job description. Lead editor would collect the layout, basically layout of the factory, lead editor would collect the flow chart of the assembly line and the flow chart of the process and the general information about the employees and their regulation and emergency exit plan from this RDT company. These are the information the lead editor would collect as a pre-audit task. Pre-audit means still he has not conducted the on-site audit. Once he would be sure about that all the documents shared with the lead editor, the documents are intact as per the requirement of ISO 9001:2015 standard, and there is no major gap available. He would have collected the organization chart. He would have collected all the required information, and now the lead editor is ready. He has his own team available, and that team name has been shared with the auditing company, and auditing company has no issue with the team. Uh, After that, the lead editor would basically prepare the audit plan. In the audit plan, definitely he has to include the audit objective. He has to include the criteria and the reference document, audit scope, date and places, and one audit would start, one audit would finish, and who will be auditing, what is the time and duration of this complete audit, and what kind of logistic the lead editor and his team required during the audit. Maybe one branch is here and other branch is 4 kilometers away or the 10 kilometers away, and what kind of logistic the lead editor required from the auditing company at that time, what kind of arrangement basically the lead editor require. Maybe he needs separate room for compiling of the report and for conducting the meeting with his own team uh, to compile the report. That is why all the resources and the logistic and everything need to be basically included into the audit plan. And then he would share this audit plan with the RDT, and if RDT is agree, then RDT will give the consent to the auditor. This is the normal form. Normally, auditor share with the RDT, and this is called audit plan. And then after agree on the audit plan, then the lead editor along with the team will move to the site, will move to that company as per the agreed audit schedule. And please note that lead editor and his team should never be late. I mean, whatsoever the plan is there, they must follow, and at least 5 minutes before, they must reach at the company premises and where the audit need to be conducted. But before that, this is a communication in between lead editor and the auditee that where the opening meeting would be conducted, because in the audit plan, lead editor would inform that the timing of the opening meeting, and this opening meeting is basically at the start of the audit. And what is the purpose of this opening meeting? Opening meeting is basically an introductory meeting in which lead editor brief about the objective of the audit, introduce his team to the audit company, and the audit company introduce his own staff, key staff that would be involved in this audit process to the lead editor and his team. And the first step on the on-site audit is conducting of the opening meeting. Opening meeting, then it is a initial meeting. Definitely the lead editor would reconfirm in this meeting the audit objective, the audit basically scope, and the audit criteria as well. And after the meeting, after this opening meeting, the plan that the audit plan that has been shared before, that can be reviewed, and if RDT request some changes into the audit plan without hampering the overall schedule, then lead editor basically accept that changes. Maybe in some of the department, lead editor has proposed to visit on such time, but that department have some other production tasks or some other important task at that time, or some other meeting, company meeting at that time, then they can discuss it in the opening meeting, and the overall schedule can be basically aligned as per that request, but not the basically the schedule of the audit. For example, if audit is for 3 consecutive days, this cannot be done that, okay, you can utilize one day in this week, another day next week. No, audit would be for these 3 days, but during these 3 days, some of the department visits or some of the area visits can be rescheduled. This is the objective of this basically opening meeting, and then basically auditor after this opening meeting, basically in the on-site audit activity, auditor has to use the checklist. Please note that audit checklist need to be developed before coming for the on-site audit. This is the off-site activity, and when the auditing company has shared the complete documentation with the lead editor and with the audit team, then all the auditors and the lead editors need to basically study those documents, and they have to prepare the audit checklist well before time as an off-site activity. Normally in the checklist, you have to include the relevant clauses and some of the relevant points based on your previous experience, that when you will go on site audit, what kind of documents and what kind of things you have to verify on the on-site audit, and you have what kind of records you have to check during this on-site audit. This checklist is very, very important, and this checklist keep you on track, keep you follow the proper clauses and sub-clauses of the relevant clause, and keep you on track to check the required data and required records as well. And how to prepare this audit checklist, we will discuss in the coming slides. And this is a skill basically, and this is part of the audit auditor question exam as well. And this is very, very important thing. Then based on this checklist, auditor would take the notes. This notes are very important, and based on this checklist, how to ask the different questions and how to take the notes. That is important thing, and then how to collect the different evidences, and then how to record those notes, and using the different auditing methodologies, how to prepare the audit report at the end based on your notes, based on your checklist, based on your evidences you have collected. Then you have to convert all those information into the audit report. But audit report should be shared in the closing meeting. And what should be in the audit report, we will share the sample audit report with you into the coming lectures, and we will explain that how to prepare the audit report, how to prepare the audit checklist, how to collect the notes, and how to convert those notes into the audit report. This is very, very important and time bound thing. because audit checklist you can prepare off-site, but you have to prepare audit notes and you have to collect the evidence and you have to basically write the report during the audit time. And writing the report is the last basically activity, second last activity in the in the on-site audit process, because after that you have to share your report with the auditee in the closing meeting. I mean, this is the opening meeting as an introduction, and then closing meeting is very important to share the audit report in which you decide that how many non-conformance were there, how many good things you have found, what is your final observation and the conclusion. And normally the lead editor basically finalize this report and the lead editor present this report into the closing meeting. We have discussed that in the opening meeting, one thing is very mandatory. You have to circulate the attendance sheet, and normally the certification bodies have their own formats, and lead editor with normally keep this attendance sheet with him, and before in the opening meeting, the lead editor circulate this attendance sheet, and everybody signs from the auditor side and from the auditee side as well. So this is basically regard that you are going to uh, what kind of things you are going to I mean what kind of things you have informed to the various people those were available into this opening meeting. This is a audit checklist. As I briefed you, we will discuss this audit checklist in detail in the coming lectures. Because auditor prepares audit checklist during the document review. I briefed you that once you get the documents from the company, you review those documents off-site, and at that time you have to prepare the auditor's audit checklist. And this audit checklist helps you to remain on track, help you what kind of record you have to check during the audit process, helps you to basically what kind of data you have to collect and what kind of activities you have to verify during on-site audit. Taking audit notes, as briefed you in the process flow of this audit, this is very, very important to take the audit note. Why? The purpose is to provide the source of information based on the fact obtained through the audit documents, through the records, through the observation, and through the different tests. And this audit notes, normally you take the audit notes on your checklist, and you have to prepare the checklist as per different classes, and then you have to keep on noting all the gaps when you are conducting the audit with respect to different classes, not only all the gaps, but all the good things the company is doing with respect to that particular class. Because in the audit report, first you have to mention the good things that company is doing. I mean, the strength of the company with respect to ISO 9000 implementation, and then you have to write the weaknesses or the opportunities for improvement. Those need to be improved into the company, into the check, into that audit report. But audit report would be basically prepared through your audit checklist and through your notes that would be available on the individual checklist of individual auditor. Collecting the verifiable information, definitely this is part of this audit, how you have to collect the verifiable information and collect the evidence using the audit checklist, conducting the interviews of the auditee. You have to ask different questions as per your checklist. What is checklist is basically uh, with respect to different clauses. For example, calibration is one of the clause. Then you have to ask the question, and you have to ask always open-ended question that how many your equipments are calibrated and how many thermometers you have. The auditee would reply they have the 10 thermometers in different areas. Okay, out of 10, how many are calibrated? Okay, 5 are calibrated. Why the remaining 5 are not calibrated? So, and if these remaining 5 are not calibrated, once you get this information and you verify this information, then you have to record that out of these 10, where the 5 thermometers are, those are not calibrated. So that is called the audit evidence. And checking the records, if those 5 thermometers are calibrated, where are the calibration certificates? Are the calibration certificates are basically the right certificates? These all things you have to do during the audit process, and this is called collecting the verifiable information. Mean once in the closing meeting, you will share that and why, and you have to basically disclose these information at every step to the auditee. For example, 5 thermometers are not calibrated. The manager of the department would be with you. Then you can ask them, okay, these 5 thermometers are not calibrated, and I am noting these things. So that when you put it in the closing meeting, he must verify and he must own that, okay, he was agree that these 5 thermometers are not calibrated. Even he has not agree, you can show him and you can later on tell that I have shown you. I mean, that is why in my last lecture and the first module of this ISO 19011, I briefed you that audit is a skill, and you cannot become auditor just qualifying the relevant standard. Mean if you are going to develop the quality management system auditor, you must pass the ISO 9001 exam, then you have to pass the 19011 exam. And after passing these 2 exams, still you are not lead auditor or qualified auditor. You have to basically do the practical audits. And in the practical audits, the trained auditor basically explain you how to do the audit, how to ask the question, how to deal with the difficult situations, and how to deal the stupid pupil and how to deal the arrogant pupil, and how to manage these kind of things in different situations. And after that, he will witness you how you are basically asking the questions and how you are dealing the uh, RDT, pupil and staff. And these are all management skills. You must know these management skills, how to deal the pupil and how to get the information from them. That is an art. Definitely 19011 and ISO 9001, if I may say it is a science, then your management structure, your attitude, and how you have to deal the people, that is an art. And you must know both science and art together. You have to do the horizontal audit and the vertical audit. These are normally the 2 types of audits. What is basically horizontal audit? If you may check one class on all departments of your company, that is horizontal audit. For example, if you are checking the purchasing class, uh, then you have to check the purchasing class on for example, there is a production department, there is a sales department, there is a HR department, there is a admin department. there is a training department. Then you have to check that how you have purchased the items in different department. For example, if you are checking the document control class, then you have to check the document control class into the production department, into the basically purchase department, into the sale department, into the HR department, admin department, one class into all departments. That is called horizontal audit. And what is vertical audit? Basically, you have to check all the classes in one department. For example, there are 10 classes, or the major classes are of ISO 9001 or from class 4 up to class 10. And if you are doing the audit of the production department, then you can check the class number 4, class number 5, class number 6, class number 10, all the classes in one department. This is called vertical audit. I mean, one class into all departments, it is a horizontal audit, and all classes into one department, that is a vertical audit. And how to do the mix audit? I mean, normally, as an expert auditor, we use the mix audit techniques. First, we adopt horizontal, then we go to vertical, then horizontal, vertical. This is called mix technique. And how to do it? This is again an art. And then you have to learn it on site with some experienced auditor. Then they can brief you on site. But this is the concept I briefed you, and I think you have understood the concept. The audit sampling, definitely during the audit, if you are going for the audit, you do not have sufficient time. For example, this is a big oil and gas company, and you are the four auditors, and you are there for 4 days. You cannot go into each and every department and into each and every record, into each and every procedure. You have to basically do the sampling, and at least you have to check more than 60% department. But sampling is a technique. How to do the sampling? It basically depend upon the lead editor expertise and his audit team. But definitely you have to do the sampling, because in this audit days you cannot go around into all the process, into all the things of the companies. Some important point while you are doing audit, you must be a good listener. It is difficult to gather information if you are not, if you are talking. I mean, you have to ask one question. For example, how many thermometers you have? Then you have to listen. Are your thermometer are calibrated? Yes. So then you have to listen to the auditee. If you are not listen, and you must be active listen. Not you have to listen to reply to him, but you have to listen to judge that what is wrong while he is briefing me about this thing. And from one question, you have to generate another question. If you cannot do it, if you are not listen actively, and during listening, you have to take the notes as well. Wherever you find that these are the gaps, then you have to take the notes. Hold the regular meeting with the RDT sometime. The RDT is one, but his department is the 100 people, and the RDT does not know the functions of some of the areas of his other department. Then you can do a separate meeting of this department with the RDT and his team of that department. That is called hold the regular meetings, and understand and respect the local customs, some areas, and local language, local dress, and the religious values, and the local values. You have to basically, some areas there are some strict rules with respect to gender. You have to take care everything, and this need to be basically discussed by the lead editor with the auditee before going on site. Otherwise, sometimes this become a very critical matter. And you have to confirm the local rules and regulation. You have to confirm the local health and safety. You must know the exit plan. And normally, our duty company, when you go into their sites in the opening meeting, at the end of the opening meeting, they give you presentation of their exit plan. Normally, this thing happen into the big oil and gas and chemical companies and some other companies as well. Establish a rapport with the interviewee. You have to basically develop a good relation with the RDT. RDT must feel comfortable, and normally this thing can happen if you start your question, very comfortable question with the RDT. If you start with the RDT, normally the auditor knows that what are the gaps into their departments. So start always with the strength of that department. You know what is the strength of this department, so that auditor must feel comfortable and auditor must feel pride, and then he would be very good rapport with you in the beginning. And you must avoid the net picking. You must avoid placing the blame on the RDT. Why you are not doing this? No, this is not your job. You have to ask the question and you have to collect the information. You have to record that information and evidence, and you have to put it into your report. Why they are not doing that is not your task. Avoid the surprises and avoid these kind of things. That is why ISO 9000 and all these standards, they do not have the provision of the surprise audit. Now, in 99.9% cases, we share the schedule of the audit well before time to the auditee, and auditee agrees on the schedule, and then we start the audit. Reporting audit results, auditors should identify two types of result during the course of an audit as briefed to exemplary practices. You have to first write into your audit report the good things, the strength of that company, and during your audit, you must also observe and you must get the evidence where they have the strength, and then you have to put the deviation or the findings where they are not confirming the things as per ISO, as per the relevant standard. You must not note those things as well. But always start the things with the exemplary practices that organization is doing. Then in the closing meeting, you must be thankful to the auditee. You have to circulate the attendance sheet. You have to basically discuss the audit report, and in the audit report, wherever the gaps were there, you have to convert those gaps into cars, corrective action reports, and you have to get basically signs from the RET on the corrective action reports, and then later on you can agree on the provisional revisit if required, if necessary. Sometimes there are some major non-conformance, and you can decide that one auditor can visit for one day later on, and he has to verify these informations. Normally, this happens very rare, but if this is a situation, you must agree in the closing meeting. Uh, Psychology assessment is another technique uh, that normally auditor knows, because auditor sometimes the auditor knows the thing, but because of the pressure of the auditor or because of the pressure of the audit team, he is unable to brief you. If this is the situation, allow sufficient time to auditee to think. Use your friendly tone and remain open, trustworthy, polite with the auditee. Do not use the authority. Always remain participative with the auditee so that they may not feel any pressure from auditor side. If this will be the situation, he would be better able to share his strength and his weakness. And your task as an auditor, there is not to get the negative information always. You have to collect the fact. Audit is always fact-finding mission. It is not a non-conformance finding mission, or even it is not a mission to collect the strength. Audit is always a fact-finding mission, and you have to collect the facts. And you have to, if you will not remain polite and participative with the auditee, then it will be difficult that he may explain the fact to you. Some of the questions you can ask open-ended question. I briefed you that you have to ask the open-ended questions, but how to basically uh, probe into the different situations. This is an expertise, and over the period of time, you learn about it. And while you are doing the practical audit, then at that time, you can learn these things in a better way. But you have to ask, the strategy is that you have to ask the question, you have to listen, and then while you are listening, you have to verify that whatsoever the auditee is briefing to me, it is verifiable. They are doing the same thing, or they are not doing the same thing, or the auditee is only talking, but the actual thing is not there. So sometimes some of the auditee are very good in talk, so they try to impress you in the talk, but actually when you see the record, you will see that these records are not available there, and whatsoever the auditee is talking, that is not the fact. And sometimes some auditee are shy. They cannot explain you even they are doing the right things. So in both cases, it is responsibility of auditor to verify these things because auditor is there for a fact-finding mission. Questioning technique, question should be asked to the right people. Sometimes, definitely, the people who are involved into that department, you have to identify the right auditee for the right department so that you may get the right answer from them. These are the 7 friends of auditor. We always say these are 5W and 1H and show me. For example, what are you doing? Okay. Why are you doing? Where the record is? Who is doing? And how you are doing these kind of things. If they brief them, then you can ask, okay, show me if you have done the same kind of thing during the last 6 months, you are producing some record, show me the record. And if record is verifying that they are doing in the same way, then that is an evidence, and you have to write that record number into your findings to write it into your audit report. Observation, definitely when you are doing the audit and you are asking some question, you can observe the body language, you can observe your areas around that. Maybe some of the good things or some of the bad things are going on. So it is not only that you are getting the information, either these are right or wrong, because you are there for fact finding mission. You can get the fact findings either through your observations while you are performing the different tasks in uh, the role of auditor. How, for example, if you ask somebody how you are operating this machine and he explains you that this is our work instructions, it means he is showing you the written thing that this is the work instruction, and he explains you that he is doing this thing as per work instruction. Still, you can ask him how. How mean he can provide the demo in front of you, and if he is running the machine as per the written work instruction and as per the instructions he is briefing, he can do that. It means this is his normal habit, and really they are doing it this way. Look for undocumented activities as well. Sometimes they are doing the right things, but they are not writing it rightly. So this is another thing. Actual thing is that they must do in a right way. Sometimes auditor can compromise if they are doing the things in a right way, but it is not written. Objective is to do the right things in a right way, but we can compromise because of the documentation, and that we can give the opportunity for improvement, that some of the things are not documented that need to be done documented. Objective evidence, definitely when you are writing your report and when you are conducting some of the interviews, and you have found that these are not the good things or these are the good things, you have to write the document number, you have to write the procedure number, you have to write maybe the equipment number at that time is there, and you have to write the person name as well that is operating. These are the evidence you can write, so that when you are talking into your closing meeting, you must be able to give the reference, and that reference is the evidence basically. Thank you very much. Up to now, we have discussed about this module 2 of 19011. And in module 3, that will be the last module, that will be more practical, because in that third module, we will practically basically explain about how to prepare the auditor checklist. That is very, very important with respect to performing the audit, and how to prepare the audit report, and how to prepare the non-conformance report. These are the three things. Those are remaining up to now, but I have given you the concept of audit report, given you the concept of audit checklist and the purpose of the audit checklist, and what is mean by non-conformance. But in the last, that in the third module, that will be probably the last module, we will discuss in detail about preparation of auditor checklist, preparation of the non-conformance report, how to write the non-conformance itself, how to write the audit report, and how to prepare it. I will show you some of the sample documents there, so that you may be able to do it perfectly. But please listen this lecture carefully. Uh, Write your question whatsoever you have, so that in the coming week, when we will uh, do the online question and answer session, you may be able to discuss these questions in detail. This is our Twitter account and this is our Facebook account. I would request all of you, please remain in touch with us, so that you may get maximum information of the project that is going on in the country. Thank you very much up to now.